How you doing? Thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here. I'm gonna start a day in the shop. I'm gonna get this place opened up. There's an awful lot going on behind me. I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to figure it out. There's a lot. I don't know. Not up to me. I can only row my own boat. You guys know the deal. I can't row your boat, that guy's boat, that guy. I row my own boat. Sometimes I can put a tow rope on yours and give you a little assist. I'll do my best. The pumpkin for the Lexus is here from the salvage yard. You might have seen the video about the how much those things cost. $8,000 from Lexus for the base one and $33,000 for the electronic differential. So we got a used one. I think it was 900 bucks, our cost from the salvage yard. And it only has a 30-day warranty. So by the time it's installed in the car, it'll probably be $2,000 or so. I don't know. I don't really do prices. Some people ask me prices a lot, but I don't do prices. They do that all up front. I know how many hours I'll get paid for their job, and sometimes I overhear what it might have cost or have a rough idea what it might have cost, but I generally don't do any prices. Let's see what we can do today. I'm going to clip in some of the cars I'm working on right here. It's here Ford Focus. Little change of plans. Broken mechanical wonder. So you see we're having a lot of fun, right? And we're definitely going to try to learn a thing or two. Stay tuned. I'll fire up this day with this here Ford Focus 2018. Just back from the body shop a month ago, and sometimes it doesn't start in park. She said she has to put it in neutral or something. Body shop told her she needs a transmission. We're going to take a look at it. Check engine lights on. I got the old scan tool in there already. Let's go hook it up. It's under this magic door here that says Obi-Wan Kenobi-Wan, or OBD2 or OBD or something like that. I wonder if this has a dual clutch. I'm not sure. 71,828 miles. We're gonna know a lot more about it soon, because the Top Don and the Focus, they're gonna shake hands. I love these cars, and mechanics everywhere should really embrace these vehicles because they keep us busy. Let's get this scan tool talking, and we'll see what we find. I'm going to go ahead and ping all the modules using a system list form. We stay away from that topology because all of these tools don't have it. If you haven't seen my other videos, there was a little controversy about only 1,000 of them having the topology function. I'm not happy about that, so I just don't use it in my videos. Sometimes I'll use it if I'm not filming, but honestly, the system list is the same thing. It's just not as fancy, showing you the branches of how the CAN system breaks down. It still goes through all the modules, shows you all the codes in the list. So it's not a big deal. I just don't like that it happened. So let's just put it that way. One TCM code, one PCM code, one HVAC code. I'm going to send a report to the front desk, and then we'll open this up, show what the codes are. We have HVAC initial configuration not completed. We have an engine overspeed condition, which sounds like something went into neutral or something like that. And then we have clutch A stuck engaged. This must be a dual clutch. That's what it felt weird driving it in like a dual clutch, but anything's better than a CVT. But my son had one of these. He had a Fiesta ST. Transmission bearings went out at 55,000 miles. At least this one got to 71,000. So it might be accident related. I doubt it. We're going to run through these flow charts and see where it takes us. Yellow brick road kind of stuff. My first concern is going to be with that transmission code. I'm going to do a key on engine running test and see what it asks me to do. Park position, cooling fan may operate during test. Well, we'll go through and let it do a test and see if it sets a code right now for that same symptom, the same issue, which is the, I write them on the key tags if I don't have my notepad with me, 2872. So if that code comes on during a key on engine running test, then I know it's a hard fault, and it's doing it right now. Clutch A stuck engaged. Okay. Looks to me like it's doing it right now. So that's a good thing. That'll help us pinpoint it down. And go inside and pull up some kind of wiring diagram, look for bulletins and recalls and all that kind of stuff. Then we'll get under the hood probably, and we'll see what we can see under there. I did a clutch system test. Test succeeded, function completed. Interesting. It's not supposed to pass that if we got a problem. She said she has to put it in neutral to get it to start sometimes. And when I turned the key, had a delayed crank, and then it cranked after about 3 seconds. I let off the key and it cranked. So kind of strange. All right, these are the clutch actuators, what they look like and where they're located. This is a manual automatic, or at least has manual clutches, I should say. But when this code sets, it means that the transmission shafts are turning when they shouldn't be. If the clutch is disengaged, the transmission shaft should not turn with the engine. So this code sets when it sees those shafts turning and they're not supposed to be. So one of the tests is to go back in here, pull up the transmission input shaft speed. There's two of them. You got to pull them both up and see if one or the other are showing engine RPM. If they are, then you need to remove one of these actuators. You loosen them, pull them back about, you know, an inch or so they're not engaged on those splines on the very bottom. You can see those splines. If you pull those back and you still see RPM, it's a mechanical clutch problem or a clutch fork problem, which is internal transmission. If you pull the actuator back and the problem goes away, then the actuator's bad. And you can also switch the two clutch actuators and see if the problem moves. If it's intermittent, we may do that with this one. We'll have to see, because it does look like it's intermittent. I did that clutch learn, and we'll show you what that data looks like, see if it's doing it right now. All right, I got my TCM up here. I'm gonna bring that. There's a bunch of rack. Let's start. I wonder if it'll start. It won't even start right now. Interesting. All right, let me find these data PIDs. Actual output shaft, we don't worry about that. We're worried about input shaft. I think it might be called ISS. The air conditioning is off too. I don't know why, and it's on the maximum cold. You guys know how that works. Clutch motor A, clutch motor B. Effective input shaft speed. You can bring that up, it won't hurt anything. Engine speed. Input shaft raw, that's what we want. So I'm going to take that off. We're going to bring this up. Input shaft A raw, showing RPM. That's what we wanted to see. So it should not have let me do a clutch test. But you do that with the key on and the engine off. So it was happy with the travel while it did that test with the key on the engine off, because it's not seeing the shaft turn. Now that the engine's running, that shaft's turning, it's not supposed to be. The clutch is supposed to be disengaged. So we definitely are going to have a problem with that. Input shaft speed A. So what I'm going to do now is ask the customer if they'd like to put an actuator in that, or to switch the actuators, which is what I would recommend, and see if the problem moves. Then we know the actuator's bad. If the problem doesn't move, the clutch is bad, which is basically transmission. So these clutches aren't serviced like an old school manual transmission. You pull it out, replace the clutch on the engine, and put it back in. The clutch is kind of in an assembly part of the transmission. I've heard people have done them. I've never done it. I probably could figure it out. Who knows how long it would take, if it would be cost effective to do that, or if you need special tools. That's one of the cool things about modern technology. It's more complicated, special tools required, and all kinds of other crazy stuff. But all right, let me go up front with this information, and we'll see if we go any further with this car. The other place told them they needed a transmission, so they may have already done this test, but I don't know. But the whole car's been redone. It was in a front end collision, but that probably has nothing to do with this. That's hard to say as well. It's all speculation. So I'll let you know what happens with this after I talk to them up front. Got a new pan for this here transmission. Let's go ahead and fix it up. That's it right there. That's the one we're going to change it out, and we're going to also use silicone. I was talking to someone in the comments about that, how silicone's really the best, and it is. And these gaskets are hit or miss. This is a quart gasket, and it was redone by a transmission shop, so keep that in mind too. But I told them, get me a new pan in case there's a crack in the pan or something. I don't know. So we got a brand new transmission pan for it. Go ahead and pop that on there. Shouldn't be nothing but a thing. And I'll use silicone on this one. This pan's not terribly expensive, and I'd just rather have it here. We're gonna put it on. Can't return it now that we open the box anyway, right? Without paying like a 25% restocking fee. If you use it on an older model, and you have to install this, get over here, dipstick tube stop. Goes in the lower pan so the dipstick reads accurately, but on the newer models it's already in the pan. So anyway, let's get started. I'm gonna lift it up and we're gonna drain some fluid out of it, start getting this thing done. Customer happens to be my neighbor, so I want to get them back to them. They don't come over and sabotage my lawnmower or something. They're actually real nice, so I don't have to worry about that, but it's still funny. Alright, I did take the coolant bottle out my way and unplug the electrical connector, which is a little lever, little cam dealio. So now we're going to start pulling the rest of these bolts out of here. I'd probably catch those if I had a free hand. But if I want you to hang out with me, I only have one hand, and that's, I have to make do with what I got. Oh. I might need to get a little extension for some of these because stuff's in the way. Yep, I need an extension for that one. The M210's and that pan's loose. I don't really like doing it. I thought it would pop right off of there, especially when it's leaking. Let's get something better. I thought it was going to pop loose, no trouble at all. Oh. Alright, I don't want to make too much of a mess. I don't have any more shirts. And a uniform guy won't be here for a few hours. He does come on Thursdays though, which is probably when you're watching this video, unless you're late. Should just lift off that electrical connector. Let go, wiring harness. It's not yours. I do want my dipstick tube cap. It doesn't do anything other than keep dirt out of there, but you know, Mercedes and stuff. And now you can see where somebody has been at it with a Scotch lock pad, which honestly they didn't go too, they used a mild one at least, but I still try to avoid them. I am gonna have to lower that fluid level a little more. I'll probably use one of my siphoning things and pull just a half a quart or so more fluid out. I don't want to waste it all, but I do want it low so that when I put my silicone on, it won't be contaminated by fluid trying to drip past it. You got to have a clean surface, otherwise the silicone leaks just like a gasket. That was one of the things I was talking to someone about that does a lot of transmission work. They, the OEM silicone, like Chrysler has their own, Ford has their own, GM has their own. That's going to be the best one for their car, but it's really expensive. So we tend to use a generic, like I keep this, and it works very well. Ultra gray for oils and transmission fluid, and then there's black, and they have a copper one, they have an orange one, but each application demands a different kind, so you got to use the correct one for the application. There's one made for oils, one's made for coolant, etc. The gray one's pretty versatile, but the best is to get the OEM and just pay up, you know, like someone told me about my Panera video, my Panera post. They said suck it up and pay. So alright, let me you can see the sanding scratches and stuff. That's silicone would probably seal it better than cork does because of the sanding scratches. So let me get some fluid out of there and we'll start putting this thing back together. Pretty funny, it started gravity bleeding. I dumped the hose in there, started to gravity feed. I haven't put shop air on it yet. It's pretty funny. But we'll see how much fluid it pulls out of there and try to get it to stop dripping. We'll see. It's going all the way in. I didn't even put any suction, it's got a shop air. Physics, it's cool. Now it'll go a little faster. I want to spray a bunch of brake clean into the transmission. Tiniest little bit will be okay, it'll evaporate real quick. So I'm going to wipe the top part of it down with brake clean soaked on my rag, get it nice and clean. You should be able to drag your finger on and have it kind of like like you feel it drag on bare, fresh metal. Not if it's slippery, there's still fluid on it, you got to keep cleaning it. Silicone's not very effective if you try to stick it on top of oil or tranny fluid. I'll go run this a couple of times, get it all ready. Then we'll put a bead of silicone all the way around it and then put the pan on. Don't put the silicone on the part you're moving. Put it on the part that's stationary that you're going to put the part onto, because when I stick it up there, if I drag it on things going towards it, it's going to mess up my sealing potential, right? So if I put the silicone on the part that's not being moved around, I'm more likely to have good results. I'm going to have to lower it down to do the silicone on the top and then raise it up, finish it off, and put the pan on. You get about 5 minutes of working time before it starts to skin over. So you got to go pretty quick. Alright, that's my top silicone bead all cleaned up and applied. Now I got to raise it up, finish it from the bottom. Quit it. Quit it. I got a little bit of a drip on there again. I'm going to do that last. I like these little roll tools that for silicone tubes. They keep the pressure even, make it easier to press it out so you don't get any thin spots. A little too much is better than not enough, but you don't want to get crazy with it. That's like everything. Where's that pan at now? We're ready. I don't want to get training fluid on this pan if I can avoid that as well. Easier said than done, but yeah. And I believe this one was on this corner. Where's all this long brown hair coming from? People getting hit by cars a lot around here or something? See it under dashboards, on bumpers. Probably just a lot of brunettes in town, I don't know. Try to get this in and get it tightened up as rapidly as possible. Keep that fluid from dripping inside there on my gasket surface right at the bottom where it's most likely to leak. Would have been nice if they did this with the transmission part. A few more bolts will start tightening this thing up. I want to get them all in before I tighten them. I'm going to snug a few of these bottom ones up just to prevent that seepage. Not tight. I don't want to compress the silicone. And that should help keep me from getting a leak. I had to unlock my extra elbow, get some of them bolts started. But I always want to start them by hand. I mean, I use my power tool very rarely, and then I go really slow if I have to. I don't like doing it. In my younger days, I repaired a bolt hole or two, so I don't like doing it. Now I can start tightening. That's the last bolt, so 105 inch-pounds on these bad guns. I'm going around the second time, so don't be alarmed. I always like to go around at least twice in case you miss one or something crazy like that. Alright, everything's all torqued and looking good. I'm going to let the silicone set up for a good hour or so before I fill the fluid back up the rest of the way. It's probably only about 1.5 quart low or so, but I'm going to entertain myself with something else. We'll see. And we'll come back to this and finish it up. Little ATF +4 and take it for a drive and we'll verify our leak repair. And I think I got a BMW to look at for a no crank. That'll be next, as long as this one's good to go. Little change of plans. Looks like we got a quick power steering hose replacement we're doing. Kind of strange. Feels like a return line in there. They normally don't leak, especially on a 2022. But I'm gonna pop the hood and see if I can verify what's leaking. And then we'll put it on. This has like a heat wrap you put on it too, I guess. Now we'll take a look. We'll see what's going on. This has the old flip front end like a race car. These little latches. I guess that's what they're talking about. Apparently they've tightened it a couple of times and it still keeps leaking. Hope the plastic's not cracked, but it doesn't look like it's not a bad leak, but it is definitely leaking. So let's go ahead and I think I'll siphon some fluid out of here. I got my siphon still out from the van I worked on, so I'll siphon the fluid out of it and we'll change that hose out. Should be quick and easy. Yeah, let's do it. Stop procrastinating, let's do it. Let that go a little while so it makes less of a mess when I pull the hose off. Make sure it's the right one. Oh man, I'm feeling a new truck status coming on. 2022. I'm sure you want to know how many mileages and how much love it gets, but it is a commercial vehicle, so a little different. They're hard to rate. Oh, the hood's open. It's mad. I know. 45,226 miles. About your average life expectancy for your Silverado. This is that. People online just love to rag on Chevy. I don't know what it is, but I know they sell a lot of them, and I don't fix Chevys more than any other brand. So, enough about that. Let's get this thing fixed. I don't know why it's seeping. The rubber might be... sometimes you can over-tighten the clamp and split the rubber slightly and make it seep. It's just a return line. It shouldn't be leaking, right? Especially not so early. Oh look, it's labeled for you, reservoir. That means the other one doesn't go to the reservoir. Nice. A couple 8mm clamps. That looked almost like a constant tension worm clamp. That's kind of weird how that expanded like that. Now I'm going to pull this hose off and siphon any fluid that might be in the hose itself. I've got everything I could out of the reservoir. It's probably going to spill a little bit. And then I'll siphon out of that hose. Then we'll go ahead and pop it on. I'm going to put some of this heat shrink stuff over it. I might even disconnect that one and put some on that just because it's got a big roll of it. Might as well use it up. It's made for AC hoses, it looks like. It doesn't come from the factory, but we're upgrading it. This truck's going to be nice when we're done. We all know it. Doesn't even have to be said. This isn't really going to work, but I'm going to try anyway. Someone's worried about leaks. The last thing they want is fluid seeping out from places. Oh, that worked out pretty good. Now I'm feeling smarter than I really look. Oh, there's fluid in there for sure. We'll fix it. Now when that fluid stops, it's time for a new hose. Don't spill on me, will you? Oh well, we tried our best. That's what matters the most. No worries. We got brake clean for that. I'm going to cut this thing to length. They don't want it on here, they said. Just put it on this one. Because we're not charging them for it. I said, since when does that matter to me? I do all kinds of stuff for free all day. I don't care. No, just do that. So I'm just going to cut this. I'll tighten this bottom clamp, put this over it, and try to get it up as close as I can to that, just to maximize what they're getting for their money. I feel pretty good about it that way. I don't understand it. It's not really near any heat, but mine is not to question why, because I am no desk jockey. Can't quite get this all open here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get a long screwdriver, wallow it around in there and get it opened up so it'll slide down easier. This probably works even better. Look at that thing. To me, it doesn't fit. Alright, you. I'm gonna have to cut it some more. I gotta walk the cable down. Keep it down! So I'm gonna cut it on there. Very good scissors, but I doubt they even make them. Someone makes them for them. All the way up. It still leaks, so I'll probably have to change the reservoir, I guess. Get some fluid in this thing. Oh, I gotta clean it up too. Especially where I spilled it. Going full automatic. Got a big mess. We got a big mess we gotta clean. I don't know if this has enough fluid. I'm going to have to get another one. Pretty close. Ah, perfect. It's like it was made for it. It's right in between max cold and min hot. And it's way above min cold. There's 3 different levels on that reservoir. It also has hydraulic brakes, so it uses this reservoir for both. The brake booster runs off the power steering system. Call this thing done. Start it up, check it for leaks, which that's a return line, doesn't work under pressure. But still got to do go through the motions, make sure. Looks good to me. Let's see what's next. 2009 Broken Mechanical Wonder. 328i, no crank. I already put a brake bar on the motor, and the motor turns. Seems like it's got a bad starter, so I'm just gonna. The power windows, everything works, plenty of electrical. So I'm going to just hook up a voltmeter to the starter energizing leads, and it probably needs a starter, but we're going to try to prove that out. Oh, how many bolts does it take to hold these in? I don't know. A lot of that. Got it. I gotta find the ones I dropped, but that shouldn't take long. This here gem's only got 100,423 miles on it, basically like a brand new car. He left us a note. He says, if you want, you can have these parts. Are they worth something? Can I get a discount on my ticket? No, we don't want your parts. Anyway, he does have a code in here, engine starter operation. CAS, car access system, AOB4 current. That may be something to look at. So I tried going in ECM to see if I can see starter data. And you can't get at the starter, it's buried under the intake manifold. So we're going to try going into the car access system, CAS, and see if we can see starter request data in there. Since you got to pull the intake off to get to it, I wonder why this little thing stays up. I got to figure that out, huh? I'm always so busy, I don't take the time to figure out some of the little idiosyncrasies that I really should know. And plus I keep using different scanners fairly regularly, so it makes it even worse. But I have to work on that. Let's see here. Inputs, brake switch, clutch switch, door lock, engine bonnet, stationary. Nothing in there about starter. It's not going to tell you anything about the starter. Alright, BMW, you're really ticking me off. I've been working on this car between trying to find out how to get it into neutral. It wouldn't go into neutral at first, and I finally pushed on the brake hard enough that it wouldn't release the brake switch because there's no vacuum left in the booster, I suppose. Finally got into neutral. I thought I was going to have to pull a lever, or some of these BMWs. Some of them you have to put a bolt in the transmission case to force it out apart. So I wasted time trying to figure that out. Now I got it in the shop. I pulled the underbelly off. I can't get to the starter from below. I can't get there from above. It's like right in the middle of the engine with the intake manifold and the motor mounts and all that stuff covering it. And the BMW mechanics are going, "Oh, you big crybaby, it's easy." I know. Let's ignition lock, mechanical key code. That's not going to tell me. Maybe a remote control does. Nope. Battery status, perfect. Very strange, it doesn't show you starter stuff, but it's in control of the starter stuff. It doesn't consider that starter. Okay, I'm going to sort this out a little bit. No point in you being in agony too while I figure this out, and I'll show you what I found. I really would like to see it telling the starter to start at least. I can turn the engine physically with a breaker bar easily, so there's nothing wrong with that. The engine does look like it was changed not too long ago. So I'm going to try to find some data PIDs and show you what we found with that. I don't want to stick a probe down there and put a hole in the starter signal wire. I guess I could fix it if I really need to be sure. Starter on this is probably about 4 hours labor or so. Let's see what I can find and we'll come back. Well, one thing's for sure, I cleared codes in the CAS module, and as soon as I tried to start it, I got a starter code again, current AOB4. So it's not happy with the starter, I know that much. Maybe I'm going to get something to eat. I'm hungry. Everyone's already gone to lunch. Maybe I'm going to try tapping on the starter afterwards and see if we can get it to crank that way. I'm pretty confident it needs a starter. Most of the time they do when they do this. But I thought I remembered getting to them from underneath. I just can't on this one, so kind of frustrated. We'll come back. That's weird. Bill did pads and rotors, and when he put the wheels on, the wheel jams on the caliper. Like the rotor has a thinner amount of metal compared to the original rotor. I bet you that's probably just enough thinner that the wheel can touch. Just barely touches. That's where all the bolts are in, so it can't be that. Anyway, I'm doing this here starter motor. I did get Rob to help me pushing the button while I put my voltmeter with my little long probe. And I just put a little pinhole in the white signal wire of the starter. I get 11 volts. So I'm going to just put a little silicone on that. You could put clear nail polish. They also make liquid electrical tape you can put on there. As long as you seal that hole, so otherwise over the years it'll corrode and that wire will turn all green inside. And then when it doesn't start again, someone else will sell a starter because the wire needs to be repaired. So anyway, to get to this thing, you got to take the intake manifold off, and to take the intake manifold off, you got to take this off. So we're going to start digging in, see what we get. See, I can get my screwdriver in the pads. I think he's got the inner pads on the outside, and it's pushing the caliper out. That's why they drag on the wheels, try to drive it out of the shop. I don't know how I got the calipers on. I couldn't get them on when I tried doing it. That's got to be what it is, Bill. I tried doing the same thing, but I couldn't get the calipers on. You're determined. You got it to work. Get some of these thread connectors out of the way so nothing happens to them. Usually on these, if you're real sneaky, you take the reservoir and a couple things off. There's a brace. There's 2 bolts and a brace under there, and you can kind of lay the intake back and get in there to the starter. Depends on how tricky you are. This out of the way. I think I can bungee cord that one. Now, it's been a little while since I've done one of these, probably a year and a half, 2 years, but I don't remember it being too terrible. I'm going to take this bellows out of the way next. Some of these brackets, I take the fuel line bracket off here, and it feels like someone already broke it, so it's not really held on. It's not attached. Take this out. The biggest thing is you don't want to break anything, even though the breather hoses sometimes break underneath. I already let them know that we may end up leaving those too. The next thing is getting it back far enough that you can get in there at the starter. So get this bellows off. expansion valve is a little different than what I'm remembering. Maybe I did this on an older car. Now all we might need is a block of wood and a disconnected battery. There's a starter down there, you see her? I wouldn't lie to you. Let me get a light so you believe it. Boom, look at that starter right there. Problem is the bolts from the back, I believe one from the back, one from the front, or maybe both, I forget. But, you know, BMW. We'll get it, don't worry. Alright. Now, you know, I like to insulate the ground so it won't touch if it moves around on its own. Now we don't have to worry about hearing and not blowing fuses and melting cables. I put a little silicone on my little signal wire already. I don't know if you can see that down there. Made a little tiny bit of a mess, but I wanted to make sure it was sealed up. It's pretty important for the life of the wiring. If you ever poke holes in something, you seal it with whatever you can find. Some people complain about what I use or don't, or what someone else uses or whatever, but just seal it with something. I'm trying to remember too. It's some kind of a Torx. I believe I have a Torx ratchet to get to the starter bolts from the back. Sometimes these will pop off. Sometimes you gotta help them. One bolt goes from the back, and the other bolt goes from the front, I believe. I'm gonna check the new starter and make sure. Look at this, Bosch. They said, "You want Bosch or Napa?" I said, "Let me think about it. Bosch." So, of course, they still give you a cheap nut and washer. I don't know why they insist on doing that, but we're going to reuse the factory one. I already see a beautiful nut on there that I like a lot better than this nut. Choose your nuts wisely. That's what I'm saying. Oh, threaded from the back. It goes, passes through and threads to the transmission bell housing. Once you drop your bit driver in there with a 13 on it, you can snake it up on here. Uh-oh. Again, all depends on your level of trickiness. Out there was gangster level. I'm just saying, I'm gonna have to put gangster glasses on my thumbnail again. I don't like to use it too often, but it all depends on how gangster I'm feeling. Look at that quality nut. That's what we're gonna use. Gear wrench, ratcheting Torx wrench. That's exactly why I bought it. I'll probably break it loose with a long handle ratchet because they're pretty tight. They're aluminum bolts that you're obviously supposed to replace them. They're single use, but that doesn't stop us from trying. So I'll probably get a long ratchet. I can't swing it much, but if I can just break it loose, then I can do it with the hand ratchet. I couldn't fit a ratchet in there, so I went back to my ratchet wrench instead. Oh, now it's loose. Sometimes we're gonna put this, there you go. You gotta reach around, jiggle the starter. Just a little bit. The aluminum, the threads in the aluminum, the bolt, they like to drag a bit, but they use aluminum because the magnesium block. If you use a steel bolt, they seize together and you can't get them out. So you wouldn't think an aluminum bolt would do, but they don't seem that much of a problem. I'll be fiddling with that for a while. These starters are a tight squeeze into the bell housing, so it's another thing you tinker with for a little while. There it goes, a little bit at a time. You have to go back and forth 2 or 3 times sometimes on them. Some of them fall right out, some of them don't. And I'm intentionally using my small pry bar so things don't get out of control. Congratulations, it's a girl. Now it's as simple as reversing the process, that's all. Don't hurt any wires, take it easy, take it easy. Tighten any bolts on these until you get both bolts started. You kind of have to go back and forth to get the starter to pull into the bell housing nicely. Probably why this one bolt was a little over tightened, it seemed like. already tightened it, but I want to check it one more time now that I finished the other bolts. They're only aluminum, so you can only go so snug. I always do that starter main cable by hand because you can crack that copper and not even know it. So you try to start it and go, man, it wasn't the starter. You can put some new intake gaskets on there. It's the right thing to do. You can get away without doing it all the time, but these are pretty bad. They're pretty flush with the plastic housing for sure. So for the tiny investment, I think they're like $18. It's definitely worth replacing them. I just use a pick. They're pressed into a little channel, and the back of my head doesn't show the bit. I already stabbed myself once, but just barely, just a little bit. Nothing to worry about. I'm hoping to at least get this intake back on here tonight, so it's not sitting overnight without being on the motor. If I couldn't do that, then I would have to cover the porch with something. See, now they show what I would call proud, coming out of the intake a little bit, showing off. So that's how you want them. If they look like that when I took it apart, then I wouldn't have bothered with them. But we like to do for customers, we really like to do the right way. Sometimes customers go, how can I save some money? And we usually reluctantly be like, well, and then we tell them, you save on some of these gaskets, but it could bite you. All right, those are 11 millimeter on the intake, by the way. You look good in that Lambo, Bill. You ought to get you one. Uh-oh. I gotta find that wire.
They look cool. They look cool driving them, but getting out of them, they look like a...
There's no way to do it gracefully. Well, I didn't realize that my wire harness wasn't where I want it. So I'm gonna call do-over. There you go. I gotta look up the torque spec for these. 15 Newton meters it is. Roughly 137 inch-pounds. Try to do without an extension if you can, but sometimes you don't have a choice. In which case I tell myself, using an extension's okay. Most people don't even torque them at all. So I know I'm way closer than they are when I'm using the torque wrench, at least, even if I have an extension on it. I know some people will go, oh, an extension. But don't worry, it's all right. I won't think less of you. That's a tight one. I might need some sort of a torque multiplying apparatus. This plastic clip was left off before. I might be finding out why. I'm going to call that a win. There's 3 10s on here. Airbox, that's just held up by 2 10s. I wanted to get this in first this time. There was a little bit of a squeeze. This just gets snapped into here, and there's a little ledge that it goes in between on the bottom. It's not really a very cooperative type setup. But it happens on every brand. Some are worse than others. But yeah. The wiring harness goes under the power steering hoses. Barely clicks in. 2 bolts for the airbox. I don't like doing this, like I said, but sometimes you can't start them by hand. So you do what you have to do. As long as you're careful when you have to do something like that, that's I don't feel bad about it. I just try not to do it when I can avoid it. I start putting the wiper cowl back in and the braces. First I'm bolting that engine cover back on. I was missing a couple of bolts. There was a couple bolts missing here and there, but we're going to be all right. This middle one in the back is 18. It's pretty big. This little plastic wiper dealio, they hide some bolts. There's one bolt hidden under each end. Other than that, just lifts right off. Don't be scared. It's interesting how they hide the two bolts under the covers. The cover on the fuse panel and the cover on the master cylinder hide that one screw. So just be aware of that. Cabin filters. A couple little snapper doodles and a rubber clipper thingy. I don't know what the dealio is with the rubber clipper thingy. I know it makes the BMW folks happy. Now let's see what we got. End the day on a strong. Oh man. Nobody likes a bragger. Nobody likes a bragger. Rob said he wanted to do some kind of suspension stuff. That's what this was for. If the starter got it running. Needs washer fluid. I need to wash my hands before I touch anything in here. The car's fairly clean. Did I give you guys a love rating? I don't know if I did. I think I might have said 4 because the box of parts I thought was something he worked on himself. But he was going to supply the lower ball joints, I guess, if we're going to do them. I don't know how that'll go for tomorrow, but that's basically it for today, though. We're ending on a positive. We got a bunch of stuff sorted out today. It was a pretty good day. The diff on the Lexus, we put off a little bit because the guy's not in a giant rush for it. Although I'm kind of aggravated. My lawnmower guy sprayed grass all over, so we're going to have to wash it before we get it back to the customer. But any car that sits out in the grass, we have to wash. I don't know why their grass chute always points towards the nicest cars in the grass. We probably shouldn't put them on the grass, I'm guessing. Anyway, that's not your concern. That's something that we have to work out on this end. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I enjoyed having you here. Very productive day, like I said. So maybe enough that you'll torque the like button on the way out. It really helps the channel out. If you leave a comment, tell me what you think. I hope you'll subscribe if you're new and you got something from this video. I hope I see you in the next video because you're awesome.